everybody. Welcome to Torah for the Nations, our meeting for this week. And this is the first week of March in 2019. And with me as co-host, Terry Hayes. And we have Thomas Schoss. Did I pronounce it right? I hope. Troy, Veronica, Fran with us right now. We hope that if you're watching this on a pre-recorded YouTube video, that you're going to come in and join us next week. We do it at 12 noon Eastern Time USA, which is 7. Well, let's leave it at 12 noon Eastern USA for next week, because when do you guys change to your Eastern toast?
Saturday night. I just heard it on the radio. We changed, you go to daylight savings.
Okay, so next week it'll still be 12 noon for those of you in Eastern USA. For me in Israel, it'll be 6 p.m. Or 1800, not 1900. So if you're listening from Europe or something, we're behind them. We don't change over to standard to daylight time until the last weekend of March. I get confused every year on this, but thank you, Terry, for helping out. What we try to do here is get people together that are interested in walking God's way of walk, which what I mean is the God of Israel, who is our creator and our father. And we're doing it. And somebody wrote me an email the other day, you guys are doing the ABCs. And I said, yes, that's exactly right, because that's where we all need to start, no matter who we are, with the ABCs. We have to forget where we were, empty the cup, and let it start being filled up again with where we are at this moment. So it's really important. Terry and I were talking about in the pre-show, we were talking about how people get stuck on where they were. Even though they're not there anymore, they get stuck there. They don't move forward. Once you realize it's time to move forward, you just leave all that behind. You don't have to show it to anybody else. You don't have to prove it to anybody else. You're you, and you're developing your relationship with the creator of the world. And he has a way that he would like you to learn how to do it if you want to. It's your choice. He gives us free choice.
I think that's kind of, in a way, a natural process, because I know after I left Christianity, I spent nearly 2 years in a debate group debating with Christians. And it took me 2 years to figure out how much a waste of time that was. And it may just be a lot of people, I think, get so angry at the lies that they learn that they've been lied to most of their life, and they get angry, and so it's kind of a lashing out of that anger. I've known several people that are just learning, about the contradictions and the lies, and their first thing they do is they get angry. They can't believe that they were lied to, that some of their pastors knew these things. Why did they tell us these things, So I think it's just a natural process, in the process thing, to kind of be stuck where you're at in an anger mode for a little bit.
Hello, David.
Hey, David.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But people have to realize they weren't taught lies. Let's start there. This whole process is the process of the creator to bring them to where he wants that individual person to be. And within this is your parents would never intentionally teach you a lie, except for Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. In other words, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
What I'm trying to do is I want to change people's opinion just a little bit. What happened was a natural course of events for this world. And if Hashem had not wanted it to happen, it wouldn't have happened. So it brings people to the point in this whole process that's been going on, especially the last 2,000 years, what has happened to the world? It's in so much better place than it was 2,000 years ago. Back then, let's start 3,000 years ago, people were doing idol worship. And people were doing all these things that Hashem definitely didn't want. Through the process of religion, whether it be Islam or whether it be Catholicism or Protestantism, the people have given up child sacrifice. They've given up a lot of really pagan stuff. And they have moved over to one God, they think. Well, they do worship one God. They just don't have the correct one yet. Also, most of the people on this earth are waiting for one event, the Messiah to come. Islam's waiting for their Messiah. Christianity's waiting for their Messiah. And the Jews are waiting for their Messiah. Little does the world know that it's all the same guy, and it all is a Jewish Messiah that's going to come. So, don't be too harsh on yourself or on your forefathers when you understand that they didn't have it right, because it's not necessarily a lie. They didn't think it was a lie. So, but it was a process you as an individual went through, your whole family, everybody in your whole family, up to you. God says very clearly that I will punish the sins of the fathers. I'll punish the sons for, I don't forget how many generations. What people don't realize, that only means if the sons don't correct the situation. They're not being punished for what the fathers did. They're being punished for following the incorrect path. Once they know the real one, all they have to do is change it, and everything's fine. There's no such thing as curses, generational curses, or things like that. So what I ask is for people to be understanding a little bit. And I got a good lesson in this because my father and I, when I became a teenager, we couldn't sit at the same table and eat together. And we didn't have a very good relationship through my teenage years. And when I left the house, it was an okay relationship, but not so good. But later, when I reflected on everything that he did to raise me up, he learned from his father, who learned from his father. So it wasn't like my father was being mean to me or anything else. It was just he was applying what he learned. I'm so glad I didn't apply what I learned from him to my own children. So the world is being brought to the place where we need to be, a reason for everything. Absolutely. No, you're quoting Shakespeare now. The world is a stage. We are all players and actors on the stage. Right from Shakespeare. I saw David here for a minute. He left, so maybe he'll be back in. Anyway, we want to get people facing forward. How do we do this? It's simple. Do you have Veronica's question in front of you?
I don't have it as far as the question. I've just been working on some of the answer. Maybe she can. Maybe she can ask it.
You sent it to me in a message, I remember.
Veronica, you want to ask your question or write it in the chat?
You can ask it. Sorry.
I was wondering about kind of like big life decisions. I know that I tend to go back and forth with regards to a decision that I've got to make, and it's like, well, do I kind of stay where I am unless things are pretty obvious, or do I go with what I would like to do? So it's more a matter of not wanting to go against the path that Hashem has put me on. So that's where I get kind of confused, is how do I know, or do I just kind of go with what I'm feeling or thinking, and just keep praying for enlightenment, I guess, on which path to follow in my life?
Very good question. Let's start with, you gave 3 choices that you're looking over right now, 3 different roads your path can take.
Yes.
When I read it, I got down to two paths because two of them came together to make one path, and then the other path. Do you mind me talking about it, or?
Oh, not at all. It's not a secret or anything. I just didn't know if I wanted to get into it.
Do I stay here where I am now? Do I move back on the reservation? I guess it's with family and friends. Or do I buy an RV and go see some of America? Now, I immediately put reservation and see America together. I just put that and stay in one spot. I left by itself. Now, where do you go from here? These are the things I want to do. How do I make a decision? Now, you can pray about it. Chances are you're not going to get an answer to that particular prayer. God will be silent because he gave you free choice to choose what you want to do. If you go a wrong direction, he'll let you know. Something will come up and you're going to have to turn around or walk through another door that opens. But you're allowed to go through the thinking process, and because you, Veronica, along with every human being, we're created as the most powerful beings that God ever created. We're not puppets. We're allowed to make decisions, and if we have to make a decision and adjust, that's okay too. I know what my choice would be, but you have to make your own. But here's the whole thing about, am I going against what God wants? He wants you to be his daughter. He wants you to have faith in him, have a relationship with him, and follow the 7 universal laws he gave to all mankind. He doesn't want anything more than that from you. Because as you do that, and you live the life like that, you are influencing every single human being you come in contact with. But wait a minute, how's that possible? Each of us has within us, and I'm going to talk about it in this way, I think it's easier, 2 souls. I don't mean literally 2 souls, but this is the way I'm going to talk about it. We have the one that controls the body, the animal soul. It generally works from the heart and the emotions up to the brain. Then we have the godly soul, which works from the brain down. Our connection with God is here, right here. And it comes in through the mind, down through, and comes out in thought, speech, and action. We have a neck here. It's a very narrow place to go through. Right now, most of us, the flow is the other way. It comes from the heart. Oh, heart's over here. Yeah, heart up through the neck without us even thinking, because it's like a pressure cooker. It comes right into the brain, and the animal intellect takes over. We get angry at somebody, or we're jealous of somebody, or we call somebody a name, or we treat them improperly. That comes from your heart. What's supposed to happen is when that starts happening in your heart, this part up here is supposed to say, whoa, heart, it ain't going to work that way. We're going to do it the way our Creator wants us to do it. We're not going to act like the animal part of us. We're going to act like the godly part of us, because he gave us his attributes. We're created in his image. So we don't have to get jealous. We don't have to get angry. We don't have to be nasty to people or animals or anything. We have such power over them anyway. But when you start acting in a proper manner, what happens is, when you act in a proper manner in front of someone, they may not at that point realize it, what you've done. They're angry at you, you don't get angry with them. You don't call them names back, and you don't do all this stuff. But inside of them is the godly part of them that said, whoa, wait a minute. There's a connection here between me and the person standing next to me. The godly parts talk whether we know it or not. And then it affects people. Nefesh and Neshama, yes, Fran, that's the two. The Nefesh is the animal part, Neshama is the godly part. What is our whole goal is to harness the Neshama, or for the Neshama to harness the Nefesh, I should say, to get it to do what it wants to do. Not to beat it up, not to starve it, not to make it feel bad, just because the neshama part of you can't go like this, can't wiggle its fingers, can't see, can't speak. That's the animal part of us. So the godly part of us has to control that part so it can see, speak, hear, and feel too. And so it's kind of a little bit of a battle. In the old days, in the cartoons, they used to have the good angel and the bad and Satan or something like that. Remember those days? They'd have the two little angels whispering in your ear, da-dee, 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 da-dee. Well, it was a good comic version of what we're talking about. So I wrote a post, or I answered a post the other day. How do we know what we're supposed to do? There was a big discussion there. And my answer was, before you do anything, before you take any action, before you say anything, you say, is this what God, the Creator, my Father, wants me to do? You just double check it. Some people say, I don't care anyway. Oof. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, because something came to me today, what we call a kiddush, a new way of looking at something. So what I'm telling you, Veronica, is there is no wrong decision here. You have to do a decision based on, I used to do decisions like this on what I call a Ben Franklin. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. But I put my three, at the top of a column, I put the three things that I want to do. Then I go down and put all the pluses about one decision. Then I go put the pluses about the other decisions. Sometimes they're the same. And the third decision I want to make, I put the pluses. Then I go back, I say, okay, what's negative? What do I stand to lose by this decision? And under each one, I'd write down what I stood to lose, and I'd look at this graph, and it's right there in front of me on a piece of paper. And I said, wow, this one has a whole lot of losses in it. I didn't think about that. Well, maybe I'll just put that one aside. And it's down to 2. And they're almost the same. Then you got to decide which would you rather do. Now, the three things you said, I know one thing. I don't like staying in one place. So I'd be off in an RV, enjoying the world, meeting people, just by you meeting people and your interaction with them, you're spreading the waters of God across the face of the earth. And then take the RV and go back where you wanted to go. I mean, that's my opinion. You may have other opinions, but it's okay. Whatever you do with God is okay, because as you're walking the path, He will put things in front of you to do. Sometimes He might want to slow you down. Let's say you got an RV and you're traveling around and you're in a certain town, and all of a sudden you got a puncture and you got to stay overnight and get the tire fixed and something like that. God wanted you to be there to meet somebody that time while you're there, see? There's pluses to every single thing we do. I think I talked about it last week, so I'll talk about it again. But the important thing here is when you want to know what does God want me to do, take it back down to the 7 universal laws. If you're in line with all that stuff, make your decision, go for it. And feel good about it. Because God, Hashem, the God of Israel, is going to back you in what you're doing. So it took me a whole lot of learning to learn this, but we're not going to incur His wrath by one of those 3 decisions. You'll never incur His wrath. Just His love. And even if you do something improperly, you still don't get His wrath. We were talking about this before the show started, that even if somebody that outright sins, I mean, let's say somebody turns a light on the Sabbath, a Jewish person turns a light on the Sabbath. Oh my goodness, what a sin, you flipped a light switch. Okay, if someone saw him do it and he goes to him and says, hey, Pesach, you shouldn't have switched that switch on. I say, okay, I've been reproved. God allows people to be reproved three times for anything before it's even counted as a sin, even if it's intentional. Now, if you do sin in private, that's a bigger section, like over there, and we'll talk about that at a later date. But all of us trip up every now and then. Some of us trip up a few times a day. We all try to do what's right, but we make mistakes. God knows we make mistakes. He knows who he created. He knows we're human beings. So he gives us a way out of it. He gives us teachers to go talk to find out, do I do this or don't I do this? How do you do it? I had a thing last week on our hot plate where I couldn't remember. Oh, no, it was with lettuce. You can make a salad on Shabbat. You just have to cut things differently than you do during the week because you're allowed to make a fresh salad. And lettuce, you're supposed to open all the leaves, wash it real good, make sure there's no bugs in it and stuff, dry it off, and then tear it, which is forbidden on Shabbat. Tearing, I mean, we don't cut lettuce with a knife because if it stays overnight, it leaves a little brown strip on the lettuce. I'm sure you all seen it. So it's better just to tear it. And I told Shira, I said, I think you can tear it because a knife would destroy it somewhat. But we're going tomorrow, or I'm going tomorrow to a posek. What is a posek? It's someone who's got a PhD in these kinds of questions. I don't ask my next door neighbor. I don't ask my local rabbi. I go to a person who his lifelong study has been halakha and what we're supposed to do, and I'll ask them the question. I'll get a straight answer, and it's over with. So there you go, pros and cons. So very good, Veronica. That's good. Just enjoy your life. That's what he wants from us. He wants us to go forward and enjoy the time we have here. You know, there's this sayings all through the prophets in Pirkei Avot and other places, the sayings of the fathers, where it comes out this way: always walk with God in joy. I-N-J-O-Y. He doesn't want you to be depressed, unhappy, sad. He doesn't want you to feel bad about anything. Our life is supposed to be a joy. Now, once in a while we stumble and fall, but that's okay. When we fall and bruise a knee, it's so we can climb up higher on the other side. We've learned something new. Whoop, let's go up higher. So it's pretty cool. And hey, guys, I know I only look 36, but I'll be 74 in March. And I'm excited about my whole life. People ask me, what do you regret? What would you change? What do you want to go back and do? And my answer is always nothing. What do you mean? You never did anything you regret? You never did anything you shouldn't have done? I said, yeah, I have. But if I changed anything, I wouldn't be where I am right now today. So you think about the next time you look behind you over your shoulder and saw where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, the things you've done in your life. And understand that each one of those things is important to where you stand right now, today. Because if you had done anything different, your whole timeline would have been different. You wouldn't be who you are today.
Right.
You have to be able to forgive yourself. God forgives you. You got to be able to forgive yourself. You got to be not harsh on other people. You don't have to worry about your fathers teaching you lies, or your grandfathers, or your great-grandfathers. This was all a process you as a person had to go through to get where you are today. And it makes life more fun when you think of it that way. It's like a roller coaster ride sometimes. Boy, I hate the downhill ride.
That's the fun part.
Yep. Well, it might be
on the roller coaster it is. Let me put it.
Yeah, okay, on the roller coaster. Now, having said that, Veronica, do you have anything else you want to? I saw what you put in, so that's good. But if you have any comments or anything you want to make, why don't you do that? And if not, that's okay too.
No, I think that that you really did help me kind of put a seal on this whole thing. I know that when one makes or has these kind of decisions, they tend to, and I'm including myself in this, is that I tend to focus too much on those decisions, and that's where my thought processes are, and tend to ignore almost everything else, which is not a good thing, because I could be doing plenty of other things rather than, trying to figure out what I'm going to do in the future. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. Just anybody watching this video, and to my brothers and sisters sitting here with me now, understand something about me personally. Let me tell you what I think the dumbest question in the world is. It's the one that somebody doesn't ask. And there's nothing that anybody can say on this earth that can offend me or make me angry in any way, shape, or form. Because it's not about me. It's about God. So anybody has anything to say? Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that does anger me a little bit. When someone thinks they know something and they don't have the education to say the things that come out of their mouth, but then you got to forgive them too. That's part of the deal. That's who they are. That's who they are. Terry, you got anything you want to?
I just want to add a little bit. Basically, everything I'm going to add, you've already said, but I'm just going to put it in a little different.
Be my guest.
Verbiage. Last night I was thinking about Veronica's question, and this statement came to my mind, and I looked it up. It's in the Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9. In the Art Scroll Tanakh, it says, "A man's heart will plot his way, and Hashem will set his steps aright." This is something I've always remembered myself, is when we plan our way, then God gives us the steps to walk in that plan. And I like, really, the Art Scroll Tanakh doesn't have a lot of commentary, but they have one here on this verse, and I really like it. And I think this is going to really help out Veronica. It says, "When a righteous person plans his way, God will help him." And then it gives a quote from the Talmud, Shabbos 104a, says, "One who comes to purify is assisted from on high." And I thought that was really good. So whatever decision that you make, Veronica, know that Hashem will guide your steps, but when you make your plans, God will be there with you, helping you during that plan. And then I felt there was something in this book. I spent some time looking through it yesterday, and of course it's Old Faithful, Garden of Emunah by Rabbi Arush, or the Universal Garden of Emunah. On page 231, I've got a highlighted section here that I'd found that had highlighted, and maybe even a different highlight from everything else, so it make sure it stood out. It says, "In every matter of life, in every worry or concern, a person must know that beyond his basic efforts, he has no control over anything, for it's all in the hands of the Creator." So basically, the basic issue that you're going to be dealing with is making the decision. And like Pesach says, as long as that decision falls without violating any of the 7 commandments, then know everything else from that point, Hashem will guide and direct you, which falls back again to Proverbs 16, verse 9, that he will help you with your steps. And that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's good. As a matter of fact, the Universal Garden of Emunah, I've been reading for the last 10 days, and I wanted to start going through that book 10 or 15 minutes every week, some of it, because it's very good. It's a very good thing to help people with the levels of emunah and the different types of emunah and all that kind of thing, so you can learn more about it. But that's, Thomas, you have that book?
I sure do. I just started reading it, and it's awesome.
Good.
I got which one too. I got that one by mistake. Well, I picked it up at a bookstore for $5.
The Garden of Emunah, yeah. And then he has the Universal Garden of Emunah. I left down in my office today. I left the book down there, the Universal Garden, and I picked up. I have here the Garden, and I opened it up, and they're not the same. So they start differently, and all. So next week we'll maybe talk a little about that. But I do want to address something else here. I want to address the problems that come into our life because of health. It's tough. It really is. This is where your true emunah, your true trust in God comes out. Because when you are feeling bad about what happened to you and the illness you have and the procedures you're going through and maybe operations and everything else, you always got to remember something. God, everything God created was for good. You can read it in Genesis. He doesn't say anything was bad. So when we get ill, we have to understand this is part of the process too. Maybe there's something we can learn from this, but the biggest thing we can learn is the biggest thing we can learn is just to trust in Him and everything, so everything's okay. I'm just going to share that I'm going through a health problem right now. I've been in the hospital twice, and it's lasted 6 or 7 months, and it'll get to an end of it, and I know it will. I trust in God. So when it happens, and I have to go for an examination or go for tests, or I have to actually go to the hospital for a little help, I don't get upset about it. The help is there because to help me with the problem I had in my body, and mine essentially comes from age. For guys, anyway, it comes with age. So I know that for everything, for every problem that there is, for every disease, there's a cure already. We may have not seen it yet, but the cure is here on earth because God never gives us a problem there isn't already a solution for. Maybe we haven't seen it yet. You know, I just was watching somebody the other day, and he was talking about lifespans. I didn't know this, but in the 50s and early 60s, average lifespan was 56 years. I mean, that's nothing. Today it's 72 years. Now that's a span of 50 some years. We've jumped from 56 years to 72 years. Poverty has actually gone down in the world. Death rate per 100,000 people, according to war, has gone down from 300 during the 40s to 1 per 100,000 on this earth today. Just think about that. Death rate from war. But we see all this garbage on the newspaper and all that stuff. So anyway, what I'm saying is just trust Hashem, and it's hard. It really is. You get in some situation, it's awful hard. But you have to convince yourself, you have to walk around most of the time trusting Him no matter what happens. You know, I think I did mention last week, but I'll mention it again. That you ever seen somebody stand by the road kicking a flat tire or with their hands on their hips? And they're all upset. They got themselves all riled up. The same energy they used to get riled up on, the tire could have been changed and had been on their way already. But they got to waste 5 or 10 minutes yappity yapping. So why waste your time? It's a part of your life. You have a choice, waste it or not. When you get angry with somebody, when you get hurt by somebody, allow that hurt to influence you. You're allowing it. It's not that they did hurt you. They've forgotten about it probably. But you've allowed the hurt to be there. So it's taking away from your life by doing that. Why would you want that to happen? My dad, may he rest in peace, said to me, he says, look, so what if somebody calls you a name or says something nasty to you? What difference does it make? Does it make a difference to your life? It does if you listen to it, because then you waste your life's energy. And my dad wasn't a religious guy. He grew up on the streets. You know, back in those days, when growing up on the streets was growing up on the streets in the 30s and 40s. He was a rough, tough guy. But he had a lot of good teachings that I got from him that in my later life, I'm even reading those same teachings he gave me, and I don't know where he got them from, but I'm reading them in the Sages. I'm reading them in Pirkei Avot. I'm reading them in these places. So I don't know. Maybe he did do some studying. I don't know. But I didn't grow up as a frum Jew. I grew up as a Reformed Jew. So, anyway, what I'm saying is you want to be focused on the positive as much as you possibly can. Sometimes it's a little hard. Sometimes we slip. But we want to focus on the positive and stay away from the negative. And don't let people influence your life's energy. I don't care who it is. Whether it's a friend, whether it's not a friend, whether it's a relative, a parent, or someone even closer to you. You've got to accept the person for who they are. Somebody does something and say, well, that's just so-and-so being so-and-so. And let it go. You just have to do that. It helps you. This life is all about you and your Father, Hashem, and doing what he put you on this earth to do. And believe me, every single human being has something to do on this earth for him. A lot of people ignore it. They don't care. They walk away from it. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Oh my goodness, it's 40 minutes in already. Anyway, these little bit of things that I'm giving you, what are we doing here? We're simply sharing with people and use the information or don't use the information to be proper human beings. Just to live life the way we were created to live life. That's the main thing. Without having in ourselves any hate for anyone else, any bad feelings for anyone else, helping people that we can, distancing ourselves a little bit from people that we're uncomfortable with, which that's okay to do also. But it always says, and it says, no, I don't remember where it is. That's all right. When you get old, part of your memory goes with you.
It's like this too, what you're saying. I've got a little booklet that I carry in my lunchbox from Rabbi Roosh. It's talking about believing in the power of you. That's not exactly the name of it, but it's paraphrased version. But right in the beginning, right in the first part of the book, he talks about, and I have to admit I've not lived up to this standard. It's in an area that I'm working on. He says, if you don't believe in you, you can't believe in Hashem, because you are created in Hashem's image.
That's true.
And I've always had a more of a belittling look at myself. And I have to say, over the past couple of months, I've had situations where I've let, like you said, don't let someone influence your energy, and I've let that happen a few times. And this is a whole growth area for myself.
You just brought up a good point. Just before that, I was going to quote, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. needs clothes, clothe him. If he needs drink, give it to him. Your enemy. Now, what does that mean? That means someone that considers you an enemy. We don't have any enemies other than the ones God tells us we have. Amalek. But all of us, we're supposed to treat them as human beings first. Everybody is a human being. Now, you've touched on another subject, which is close to my heart, which is self-worth. All of us grew up in a society that told us we're good for nothing, we're born in sin, we're terrible people, we sin all day long, da-da-dee, da-do, da-da. And I learned something, fortunately, when I was pretty young. I learned on my own by mistake. In the early 70s, I got into the car business, selling cars. And I decided I wanted to be the best car salesman I could possibly be. And I went to the library. Back then, there was libraries. There wasn't the internet. I looked up. I wanted to know who was the top car salesman in the USA. His name was Joe Girard, and he wrote a book, How to Do It. So right then and there, I had to cancel myself out, pick up that book, and read how to copy what he did, because there's no new wheels around. All the wheels have always been here. I didn't have to try to think it up myself. And I did become a very successful car person. Made a lot of money. And wish I had it, but squandered it and had to look fun with it while I was growing up. My kids did too. But the point is, when you want to be that proper, right, good person, you have to have an example how to be that. And God tells us exactly how he wants us to be that good person. We just have to learn what it is and copy it. Now, how to help yourself get on that road, and I tell people to do this, when you wake up in the morning, we all head for the same room every morning. There ain't a person on earth that doesn't go to that room in the morning. When you finish your business and you go wash your hands, there's a mirror in front of you. Guys with beards probably never look in the mirror except to go like this in the morning. Women only do it when they're going to put their makeup on and they get real close and to do all their makeup stuff. But what I'm telling you to do tomorrow morning, after you wash your hands and dry them, look in the mirror, look at yourself, look yourself in the eye, and tell yourself, I'm walking God's highway and I'm a good person. And I know God is going to help me today. Done deal. You have to have your own self-confidence to help anybody else do it. Positive input.
Here's that little booklet.
Believe in your power, okay?
Yeah, by Rabbi Roosh.
There's a lot of books about it. There are people in professions that make millions of dollars off of people trying to tell them how to be a positive person. And all you got to do is look in the mirror every morning in your own eyes, which is hard to do. It's hard to stare in somebody else's eyes. Look in your own eyes and tell yourself who you are. You're a good person. You're walking the best you can God's highway, and you know he's going to help you again today, so you're okay. Now, I think, of course, I've been doing it for years and years and years, so I think that it's pretty easy. But getting started, how did I learn about this? Joe Girard said that every morning when you wake up, and after you get out of the shower and you've shaved, that was one of the things he said. You always go clean shaven when you go sell cars. You write yourself a 30-second commercial about how good you are. You look yourself in the eye and you read that commercial to yourself every day. Mine used to end with, and somebody's going to pay for me getting out of bed this morning. That's how mine used to end. But it works. It works. And it's just a positive input. When I would go to work on a sales floor and I'd walk around with a smile on my face all day long. By the way, one thing I didn't mention, when you look at yourself in the mirror, smile. Smile and leave the bathroom smiling. People would come to me when I was first started selling and other salesmen, you walk around smiling all day. What are you, some kind of idiot? What, you got to go to a mental house? You're a nutcase because you smile all the time? And at the end of the second month, I said, when they would say that to me, I said, well, I smiled because I know I made more money than you last month. But the smile is there. I spend my whole day, every day, here in Tzfat, except for Shabbat, at a place called Kikar HaBeginim, the circle of the Defender's Circle. It's a central circle in Tzfat. I have a storefront. What do I do all day long? I stand in front of it, and I talk to everybody that walks by. We have loads of tourists that walk by, Jewish tourists, non-Jewish tourists. I don't care who. And I'm always out there smiling, saying hello to everybody. And people, when I come by, now, even some of the Tzfatis, the people who live here in Tzfat, that they used to walk by and not say nothing, and I say, hi, how are you? Good day, and smile at them. Now they're saying it to me before I can say it to them, and they're smiling at me. And it's contagious, it grows, but you should try to keep that smile on your face all the time. Not just when you're feeling like smiling. Just, you ought to try. It's hard, but it affects everybody around you, including you. There's no such thing as born in sin. There's no such thing as having to have somebody pay for my sin for me. There's none of that. You don't find it anywhere in the Tanakh. You make a mistake, you say, I'm sorry, and you go forward. It's not, God isn't there every minute with something whole over your head saying, oh, you sinned 3 days ago, and I remember that, da, 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 da. One of the basic teachings to guys like me, that we come back to being what we call frum, Orthodox Jews. It's taught over and over again to us that it doesn't make any difference what you did before you got to this place. It makes no difference what you did. The minute you turn to God and start walking with Him, He counts what you did before to your merit. Why? Because it brought you to Him. He's not constantly hanging it over you. He forgets about it. And so you don't have to keep reminding yourself about it. He forgets about it. You don't have to keep reliving and reliving it. Now, there's some things we go through in life that sometimes we've done something that has caused injury or harm to someone else, and we regret it, and we feel sorry about it, and then we look back on it, and it gives a little hurt in our heart. Okay, but God is already, you still with me? You still together? Okay. So, anyway, these are just little things on how to lead your life, and we're going to talk about it next week and we'll start with it next week. There are 3 types of Jews, according to a book called the Tanya, which don't bother reading, don't bother getting it. I'm on the 4th reading with private tutoring, and I'm just beginning to understand it, my 4th time around in it. So it's so much deeper than the words put it on the paper. You're taking a stroll through someone's mind and how they think. And it takes time to get to know it. It's really, really tough. But they say that there's 3 types of Jewish people. One's called the Rasha, or the bad guy. One called the Benoni, which means medium type guy. And then the highest level is Tzaddik, the righteous person. Inside of each of those levels, there's steps to climb up. None of us get to Tzaddik. Just know that right up front. You're either born one or you're not. And we understand that God has a special well of souls where he pulls out righteous from and puts them here on earth in every generation, so we have some righteous people here on earth. I was applying it to what I know about non-Jewish people, and it's no difference. There are these categories, and which I will talk about next week, but we have people that we call, I don't want to use the word Rasha, because if you look it up, it translates evil, but they're people that are just not good people. What I mean by not good, they don't follow what God says to do. Then there's two different types of those kind of people we're going to discuss. And then there's some middle people. In middle people, there's three different kinds of people we're going to discuss. This is all a ladder, by the way, walking up to get where you want to be. The one great thing about being non-Jewish, the Gentile can be called a tzaddik. They reach a level of righteousness that a Jew essentially can't grab that title unless you were born with it. Tzaddik is the righteous Gentile. It's the ger tzaddik, the alien that is righteous. You can, a non-Jew can actually have that title and be called that, where a Jew can't. Now, we call each other tzaddikim in the middle of, we call each other, oh, hey, tzaddik, how you doing today? But we know we're not, you know who a tzaddik is. Every generation has them, more than one. And there's a phenomenon happening in this generation right now that all the tzaddikim that we are aware of and that we followed for 50 and 60 years, they're all passing now. So we are we're waiting to see what happens. But we think we're just in the birth pangs of the Mashiach. It's actually giving here. Fran puts in every generation has a Mashiach too. That is correct. Sometimes they are used, sometimes they aren't used. But the word Mashiach and Messiah, God uses. He used Moses as the Moshiach. He used Esther and Mordecai. He uses people to save us from situations. So they get the title of even Cyrus. That's correct. Even Cyrus. So there's someone ready to be full Moshiach or Messiah every generation. That person may not know it. From birth, that person is probably not going to know it. Because if we look at the really righteous people of Israel, Abraham and Moses and others, they didn't know anything until they were 80 years old. They lived their whole life. And all of a sudden at 80, God says, okay, you're up, let's go, your turn it back. And there have been people that have missed their chance throughout their lives, which is a shame. So we're going to talk about this next week. We're not going to get into it right now. Anyway, that's just a little teaser for next week. Terry, you got anything you want to add for what we talked about?
No. I'm just really looking forward to what you're going to get into next week. I'm going to take good notes.
And Thomas, Veronica, Fran, Troy, you got any questions you want to ask? We still got a few minutes left.
I enjoyed myself, that's for sure. I like this.
Like this? Look, this whole thing about being a Noahide or being a Jew is nothing about religion at all. It's about a way of life. Me being a Jew, and I'm called a religious Jew because I religiously follow and if you look it up, what it means to religiously follow means something different than religion. what Hashem has put in front of me to do and believe. It's taken me years to learn it. I still got a whole lot of years to go till 120. May He bless me. And to learn how to get better and better at what I'm doing. But you always keep one thing in mind. Whatever you do, wherever you go, God's not looking for perfection from anybody. He's looking for progress. Take another step up the stairway. Climb another rung on the ladder. When you climb one rung, you have no idea the joy in heaven. The angels sing. The trumpets blow. You're one step closer. So it's important you understand that and that we're not being religious here. This isn't religiosity. We're learning how to be the person that God created us to be, to follow His way. And all these people have put all this other meaning into this stuff, and they're always bringing stuff up and complaining and moaning and saying, well, look at this, it says this. And they have no idea what it says. They read the words. Maybe next week we'll talk about Pardes. I don't know, maybe it'd be a good idea. Terry, you know what that is? It's the level of the depth.
The four levels of, I guess the word is hermeneutics of Hebrew scripture.
I guess it's hermeneutics. I have no idea what it is with Pardes. Pardes, Pardes actually can be translated paradise, or can be translated to an orchard.
Are you talking about Bashat Remez?
Right. Yeah. There's a simple meaning of everything that God said, and any of us can read it. As long as we don't try to put our interpretation on it, we can read it. Then there's always in the words a hint that there's something deeper. Then there's the looking for what's deeper. And by looking, you're not supposed to do it yourself. You're not supposed to mine for gold on your own. You're supposed to have someone lead you there. So you start digging tunnels in the wrong direction. And then we have something called the soul, or the basics. So it goes from the simple level to the hint that there's something deeper, to study what is deeper, and then to the basic. But you know what happens? When you get to that basic, all of a sudden you're back at Pardes again. Because under that, what you get to, there's more levels and more levels and more. It's unending. God is infinite. And it's fun. And nobody has to know everything. You can just know what you want to know about what you want to know.
Right.
So,
That's several years ago. I was over in whitewater rafting shop that we have here near the Coy River, where they held the Winter Olympics for whitewater rafting. I think in '96 or something. There's a shop up there. I had a T-shirt that had a slogan on it. It's become one of my favorite quotes. The journey is the destination.
that's right.
I've never forgot that. It's become one of my little quotes. The journey is the destination, and that really nails the Noahide and the Jewish life. It's a journey.
That's right. It's just the journey that we're on is the journey that the Creator of everything created us to journey on. He put us on that road. And I want to ask each and every one of you if somehow next week you can bring a friend, maybe. Bli neder. When we say bli neder, it means you don't have to make a vow about it. It happens or it doesn't happen. But if you can bring one more person, I know Fran's been advertising it, around to some people, and Veronica probably has. And anybody you can get to come in just for a few minutes. Let's get them in here and see what we can do.
Hey Troy, we need to check on Nicholas. See what happened.
I saw two people come in here, a guy named Christopher and a guy named David, and they came and went.
David's my Jewish friend that lives in New Jersey.
I thought I saw a yarmulke on his head. Okay.
He's got well, he's probably a little over a year old now, but he does have a little baby. Well, not a baby, he's a toddler now.
Hmm.
So that's probably got him busy. He's been having some ear infections.
Listen now, if you have any questions, you get a hold of on Facebook, message Terry or myself, or you can email us. Any way you want to get a hold of us. If you have questions you would like to open up and learn a little bit more about, we'd like to help you. Yeah, the end times. People want to know about the end times.
I think my personal viewpoint of that, from the road I've been down, that's still Christian thinking. Because really, in my understanding, in my studies, Jewish studies, Noahide studies, we don't worry about the end times. We worry about now. We put our emphasis on doing now.
You know why?
The end times will be here, and not everything.
You know why?
What?
You know why we don't worry about the end times?
Well, because a lot of it can change. A prophecy is not set in stone.
No, because we know what the end of it is. We're going to be with Hashem on the next level of life. No matter what happens down here, we're going to be there with Him as long as we do what He asks us to do.
Yeah,
So
I've tried to explain to people, I'm like, why are you worrying about that if you're walking with Hashem? Why are you worried? I mean, even if you worried about somebody else, there's nothing you can try. It doesn't benefit you. Put a notch in your belt. You know, you're not getting the world saved. I know you don't want people to die, but that's between them and God.
Yeah. I know they still want to, everybody wants to know what's going on. I'd love to know the future too, but I got tired of looking for it. I'm just living it. So the main thing, the bottom line on what we need to know is simply, if I do what God wants me to do and live the life that He wants me to live, I've taken care of myself for the end times. And possibly, somehow, I've influenced people around me also so that they will benefit from it. You never know what's going to happen with a seed you plant in someone's mind. 20 years later, it may flourish. You don't know.
Just like what happened to you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it's amazing when you accidentally or on purpose, you find out that something you said years ago influenced a person's whole life and a whole family's life. How exciting that is. And you don't have to be a rabbi, you don't have to be nothing but who you are to do that. Because you plant a seed that somebody thinks about. Now, we're not supposed to go out and try to evangelize on street corners, but we're just, by being, we are what we are. Very good, Fran. I have to think about that. How we might be able to tie that in somehow. Yeah, I know some of the people that they like to go listen to about that stuff. Some of the rabbis preach in that manner. Anyway, we're running out of time. I appreciate you guys giving us the time you have given us. And as far as I'm concerned, you guys are brothers and sisters. We're all one. We're all walking that one path, and we can help each other do it. And we can help others by helping each other also. Terry, any final words? Okay. I'm going to leave you guys all with Shei Ratzon Hashem, Shei Lechem Shavua Tov. It should be God's will that each and every one of you will have a wonderful, terrific week this week.
Amen.
And we'll be back next week. Lihitraot. See you later.